All right, back from our recess, we have a motion to accept the additions and deletions. If someone could move that, please. Councillor York, thank you. Deputy, I've got you for the second. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. The minutes of the September 13th, 2021 CAC meeting have been distributed for approval. If there are no changes, the meetings are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red, and the annotated minutes will be added to the electronic meeting filed as approved. Are there any changes? None? All right. Moving right along, we have two presentations this evening. Thank you very much for being here. Our first presentation is the Mentoring Plus update from Julianne Meisner. And Julianne, welcome. I will admit to my delinquency in not coming down to visit you yet. But I'll say that it's because of the COVID and I haven't been able to find your office, and that would be really lame. But we look forward to hearing from you this evening. Thank you.
Incognito at best anyway, so you could pretend that you tried to see me many times.
Okay,
and you just didn't catch me in the office.
We'll go with that theory. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. Are people going to see a presentation? Is that something that will happen?
Is your screen on over there?
No.
Dave, I think it's her podium. If you could just wake up the podium computer.
I have some strategies that I use for the children. Would you like me to try it?
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Needs to be logged in, no janitor.
Yeah.
It's on visitor.
Yep.
You got it?
No, that's you.
Or me?
Visitor.
Visitor.
Is that what it is? Okay. You're telling me visitor is visitor.
It's code.
Password is password. I can't even spell visitor. Oh, come on.
It's written right there.
My fingers wouldn't work.
So it
Okay.
should be open on the bottom there, Julianne?
Perfect. Thank you. And you would like it as a slideshow? And do those at home, like Facebook world, gets to see this too somehow? Cool. Many of the slides on here are much more interesting if you just, not even interesting, they're just in your package because if you wanted background knowledge, they were there for you. So thank you so much for having me. To all of you, I am Julianne Meisner, and I'm so excited to be what I am calling, like your third season, perhaps, of the Mentoring Plus strategy event that's happening on our waves here in Kentville. So as the third coordinator of this position, there has been a little delay, perhaps, in our traction of getting the program running, because it is running in 3 sites across the province. But I'm here to share with you the excitement of what we have been able to do, and my enthusiasm of being part of the initiative. So for those that are new to hearing about Mentoring Plus strategy, we have started the program first with a pilot in 2018, which was running out of New Glasgow, and ended up with funding, or proposal first into funding for New Horizons, and being lucky to get that funding, and now partnering with 3 municipalities across the province. So very excited to be here in Kentville. We also have a site in Truro, and like I mentioned, New Glasgow, where we get to start off. And a backbone organization that had proposed that funding, into that funding, was with Dalhousie's now Faculty of Continuing Education. So exciting that we have a growing team that is exploring this. A few names in the background, just in case you're curious. My name is there now as the Mentoring Plus coordinator in Kentville, and looking forward to soon adding some administrative support to that, so that there will be a couple of faces for us to get to know in the community here. Thank you to those of you that have known about this and been waiting to see what was coming for a long time. Mentoring Plus got started and received this funding that I'll describe here in a little bit just before COVID struck. And so there was pictures pre-masks, which is nice to see, but also understandably some delays in moving forward. So just to introduce the concept, for those that aren't familiar, out in the big wide world, Mentoring Plus aims to look at ways for us to engage our retirees and strategies to respond to an aging community, maintaining an interest in what's happening with progress socially and economically after our age of, perhaps we're hitting that retirement phase and we're moving out of employment, but not ready to withdraw and not be engaging in the knowledge exchange piece of that. So knowledge exchange is a key kind of phrase that we're used with Mentoring Plus. New Horizons is keen on the funding federally, says how can we engage seniors? And this unique approach is one of 200 applications that came in back in 2018 to their funding, and one of the 19 that was approved. So we're very pleased with that. It is the only one in the group that actually has created a suggestion that involves mentors and the retirees as kind of the active participant opposed to an activity for them, like a social or fitness event for them. So this is a typo. Obviously, the success of that very far away initiative into the future is a typo. So in 2018, that pilot started. My apologies for that. And so we are looking at those keywords of intergenerational approach. And so 55 plus is young now. When we say senior, I think people are still drawing into their heads somebody who's 85 and in a rocking chair somewhere. And so to really remember that we're talking about the baby boomers. And what are baby boomers doing as they're anticipating their after retirement, and a very large group of our demographic who were told that they were going to be Freedom 55, but that there was going to be like half a lifetime after that that you were going to have to entertain yourself with. And so many people not leaving the workforce right away, but those that are ready to choose their path and make kind of what I call free agent choices about how they're going to engage, really have an opportunity to give a lot back to our community and nurture and direct some of our youth and those that are finding their way. Obviously, the aging demographic is a concern. We know that in Canada, we have a high population that are over 65, but these 3 areas that we are running our new programming in just show that we are looking at a very high population here in our own area, where we have people over 65 taking up almost 40% of our community in Kings and Annapolis. So just to looking at how can we really be engaging the most with these individuals. And I myself have come from working for over 15 years in employment support. I've worked with PeopleWorks for 10 years, and I worked with NSCC most recently for the last 4 years. NSCC grad myself here from Human Services Programming, and worked with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we have this amazing community here in the Annapolis Valley supporting employment support. Probably the largest group in that agency pool in the province. So it's this wonderful opportunity to engage at that level and find ways to support individuals who are ready to find meaningful employment. On the flip side, we have a huge number of well-educated members of our community as well, and how can we kind of do this wraparound service so that we are providing to both ends of this, and it's really exciting to start to see that happening with this new initiative. So if I can show you a little bit about where we have arrived to in the last little bit. I don't know that this is going to...
I think it should work. We tried.
It will play?
Yeah.
All right. So am I allowed to be interactive? Or am I okay to do that quickly? Just as a quick question? Thank you. Just a raise of hands around, I'm curious about this, is informally. Have you individually here in the room ever identified yourself as a mentor before? How many people would self-identify as a mentor? Yeah? Okay. And so I think that this is going to show we have two groups perhaps as we move into pooling people and seeing that some people are kind of naturally mentors. We have a really organic relationship with mentoring, especially in rural Nova Scotia, I think, that we encourage mentoring individually. But many people are not necessarily in careers that give them that title or that sense of purpose individually. And so we have another group, perhaps, of retirees who have yet to be nurtured into that phrase of identifying themselves as a mentor. So we're hoping to embrace that philosophy of mentorship, perhaps in the same way that people can embrace entrepreneurial spirit, that you don't have to be by job title to be an entrepreneur, but that just sharing your story and your narrative as you have lived your life can be helpful for others who are trying to figure out their way. So one of our initiatives is to grab mentoring minutes from our volunteers who are mentors, that those can be shared. And hopefully if this little video clip works, we have a sample of one of our mentors
I
here.
worked in several different departments. There were some people I admired. At one point, I approached an emergency room doctor because he was the most approachable doctor in the hospital. Like I'm 21 or 22. I don't know anyone intimidated by the doctors. And I just asked him, tell me about medical school. Because I didn't know anything about it. But I ended up going back to school again. I did a second degree, and I did pre-med. Did not get into medical school though. But that was,
There's a piece of the story right there.
that was a big uphill battle, but I finished a degree in science, and right after that, I got a job with a drug company, because it came with a company card.
So for those that perhaps that was not quite as high a volume as needed, just to be able to tell a story about the idea of career path, and that we don't just have jobs, that we know what we want to be when we grow up, and we are that for 35 years. So starting to share that knowledge so that individuals feel comfortable opening into conversation. These little samples of that are here. Somebody who maybe didn't ask the right question and maybe ended up in a place that they didn't expect, and to those benefits. So asking these kinds of questions and getting mentors speaking helps us to own our own narrative and also to know how to share that with others. So recently, we've started to create opportunities. VCLA, who I believe that you are familiar with, in the community here, Valley Community Learning Association, has been kind to open their space up to us. They have a new location on Oakdean, and we're able to create a space for a life lounge where we can invite people in as mentors to start those conversations about what it takes to be a mentor, nurturing those qualities, and also then to bring in our individuals from employment support agencies who are finding their way, and have them be part of that conversation. At VCLA, they're doing experiential learning, so we also have the group that's working in their kitchen, catering those coffee-like chats. So nice to be together. A little sample of the video clip there was from them recently receiving some additional community support. So just a wonderful example of mentors not just being there for individuals, but also by being in community environments, our mentors get the chance to also mentor agencies. And so after an example of one of these morning activities, some of our mentors were able to have a side conversation with staff in the mentoring or in the agency and talk about some strategies to develop some of their programming. So natural opportunities for conversation that may otherwise not have happened. So it's been nice to see. Again, just a couple other things that we've been doing, I've been doing since I've arrived in the position, is to take advantage of the lighter restrictions during COVID and find opportunities to get out and interact with our community. Thanks to an active volunteer and also one of your members around the table here. Thank you, Councillor to Paula Huntley, who it was telling me about what the, Sorry, have I got something up here? Do I need to?
You could just X that.
Okay. Just
Or not.
So with the Lions Club, looking to recruit more members and offering so many wonderful things to the community, they feel like a natural fit. Starting with embracing a chance to go out to one of their community breakfasts, we were able to have a networking and thank you with some of our mentors and community members who are supporting the work, and meet together the day after Seniors Day and have breakfast together. We also are going to be able to talk with them about how to engage in the community more. As I've mentioned, we're working with DCLA and the agencies that provide employment support. And very excitingly, we're going to be going and starting in with the high schools at Central Kings to be able to engage with the high school students there in a mentoring mixer. So this date has been moved a little bit. So if you know or yourself might be 55 plus and thinking about wanting to be able to offer knowledge on to others, we're looking to start conversations with the high school students in November about knowing how to recognize the difference between career paths and where you might fit in that journey. So creating lots of opportunities for mentors that are interested in the program to learn more. Every other Monday, we will be having a Zoom info session for people that are curious about the programming and where it's coming from and how they can get involved. And then we will also have opportunities for people to connect through a Zoom access. That way, if we do go into another shutdown, we're still connected. And keep conversations going, building that sense of mentorship, as well as the mentors who are really keen on finding ways to initiate more mentoring opportunities within the community. And really today, I just hope that you become kind of reattuned to the idea that Mentoring Plus is happening in our community, that Mentoring Plus strategy is really just about how can we find opportunities to engage mentorship as a philosophy, and stay tuned for more, working with the business sector and personal development, professional development to define retirement, as well as all those agencies in the community to help bring out these initiatives and have mentoring mixers. So lots to come. Please spread the word. Please consider participating. And please, if you have new ideas or suggestions, I am 100% interested in collaborating and getting feedback. So thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, I am both available now or into the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Julianne. And are there any questions for our presenter? Councillor Maxwell, just give me a second here while there you go, you're on.
Thank you, Julianne, for your presentation. I'm thinking about the organization that I belong to, which is a retired teachers organization. And I'm sure that there are probably organizations for retired lawyers, retired doctors, retired nurses, and so on. I'm wondering if this strategy has been shared with those different organizations, because there may be people within those organizations that would be interested but may not hear about it otherwise.
Exactly. Yes, thank you for your question and for your interest. We have just most recently a mentor that joined that said that she had heard about it through the Retired Teachers Association, so that was a good news. Locally, it is coming out at different retirement sessions and hopefully to be included in pre-planning sessions as well, so that those that are preparing for retirement is being presented as a suggestion that is around the whole wellness strategy of life balance after retirement. But yes, in the newsletters and such things are going out as well. And, so a few different angles, but absolutely, if you know a direct line and you say, I would like to be able to send something forward to my network, then thank you, and I would be happy to share information for that. Thank you for your question.
Is there anything further? All right, thank you very much, Julianne.
Okay, well, you now probably do know where to find me, but I do have your shirt.
Okay,
So if you would like to have that, I will leave it for
Thank
you.
you.
And counselors, thank you very much for your support and patience as we get up and rolling. So I can happily also get you a shirt if you're so inclined to have one in the future. You let me know.
thank you.
And I'm good to walk away from this and somebody else can speak
Yep.
with it. Thank you.
All right, and our next presentation is Chrysalis House with Board Member Deb Moreau.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Mayor Snow and councillors, for giving us the time to present. And just a small clarification, I stepped down from the board to be the chair of Project Renew, which was the initiative for the House. So the board chair is actually Sharon Cochran, she had to
Okay.
run. So just to jump into this, I am supported by Ginger McPhee, the executive director of the House, and Betty Colt, the Women's Outreach Coordinator also, so far from alone. So, yeah, I'm here. I saw lots of your faces at our open house the end of July. So really, it's truly been a dream to reality. We presented to the council in 2018. Some of you were here, lots of new faces. There are days where it's hard to find the words when I do my nightly stroll around Kenville and I see the new house. So here we are. So just a little background. Really, the shelters, the violence against women shelters in Canada is approximately 550. This data is a little bit dated, but I think will give you a sense of sort of need. Really, it's far more than just providing a bed. There are services that involve in-house, but also a tremendous amount of stuff is done that is outreach, meaning working with women and their children in the community who aren't necessarily staying at the house, and also women and children who stayed at the house and then have gone on, were empowered and given the strength and support to move on, and that support continues over time. So this is just sort of a one-day snapshot. It wasn't the low days, it wasn't the high, but if we looked at the 550 houses across Canada, on any given day, these are the totals we would that have actually been cited in the literature, so we could expect to see. One of the things we're noticing, and I'm really glad Julianne showed the data on aging population, because that fits quite nicely here. We're recognizing more and more that there's increasing needs for the aging population. And of course, in our old home, the biggest challenge was accessibility by far and large. Or I shouldn't say the biggest, it was a major issue. So under COVID-19, things of course changed for everyone, and they certainly did at the house, but in spite of that, the house staff, which is not me, took in, over 1,000 advocacy calls, close to 1,000 distress calls, a number of distress visits, and there were 87 admissions of women and children to the shelter that year. And of course, these numbers are a conservative estimate of the calls and the services that they did provide. So for those of you who may not know, Project Renew was an initiative that was started in 2012. And this really was born out of a recognition of the challenges that were kind of growing as we realized the sort of ever-changing needs of the women and the children. Everything from, everything from the diversity, the diversity of our community changes, that also adds nuances that the house has to be prepared to manage. In addition to that, and certainly not unimportant, was the age of the century home that the original house was in, and the routine problems with sort of maintaining that building. So the board and the staff at that time got together for a day of sort of strategic planning, and we identified some key changes that we needed. And I should say, the conversation was really about, can we fix what we have and manage with the changing needs, or what is our next step? And the decision was what we really needed to do was sort of wipe the slate clean and start again. So the biggest thing was reduce barriers for accessibility for not only those who stay at the shelter, but staffing and outreach services. So for some of you may not know that there was a third floor, and that's really where the children's activities took place. So there were occasions where moms weren't able to access the third floor because it's a sentry home and elevators weren't. That was a whole nother piece to get that installed. So staff, of course, were moving up and down those stairs. And so the reduced barriers for accessibility is a big deal. Of course, the sort of language in this particular service is trauma-informed physical spaces. So creating physical spaces that are actually healthy and promote health were key. And we needed to kind of come up with an initiative or an idea that where we could, first and foremost promote safety, well-being, and the healing of the women and the babes that came to stay there. Of course, increased security always remains a piece, but times have changed, and the days of the sort of antiquated thinking of shelters were a hidden thing and we kept them sort of isolated and off the radar are long gone. As unfortunate as it is, this is something that happens in all communities, and so we see this as an opportunity to offer the services that these women and their families need, and also supporting the community and groups within the community that may have not just similar needs, but needs where they could use that same space. It also provides service in-house that before we kind of had to split families up. So supervised visits is a good example, where children have to be escorted off-site to be with the other parent. But now we have space in the house on the sort of less secured side where these things can happen. And the mom is comforted knowing that babes are just downstairs. So, of course, and that bleeds into the opportunity to provide joint programs with other service providers. And we see this, the community relationship piece, over and over and over, has demonstrated that, when the community is behind this, then it expands the social net of these women and their children, the families. So our new space, it's just fabulous. Improved capacity overall. So the rooms were adaptable, so they were made so that we could accommodate families, the nuances of different families. So if a mom comes in with 3 children versus 1 child or a single mom, we have the option to sort of modify the rooms in such a way that we can accommodate them better. Everything is accessible. In fact, Chrysalis House won an award, were recognized last year, and given an award for the accessibility initiative. We have built in quite a bit of community space. I think the board, I could be corrected, but the board is working on how that space is going to be accessed by community groups, and so stay tuned for those details. There's a board room, training rooms. We now have a receiving donation bay, so the items do not have to come in the house and then go down into the basement and then be hauled back up. There's kind of a garage door, so folks that want to make donations can kind of pull up to the back, and heavy goods, things like that, can just be parked in and put on the shelves. A lot of donations go to women when they leave the house. So when you're setting up a little apartment or your new place, so these donations the wealth is spread far and wide. There's also a counseling room. We have an observation room. So if a woman shows up at the shelter and there are some questions about her personal safety, psychologically, she can stay. This is severe trauma. She has a room that's not very far. It's just kind of off from the frontline staff. So she is I don't want to say, so someone is close by and can see her, she'll be in good care. We have a pantry, we also have a spiritual room, and of course, some flex office space for other service providers. So we are here today to ask, to request some funding. The new property has an assessed value of about $1.9 million. That's of this year, and the calculated property taxes for this year that we received were $498. Typically, fundraising activities and revenues are used to offset the increased property taxes and insurance costs, and we don't anticipate that changing. Fundraising efforts for this initiative, in spite of COVID, were quite good. We weren't as active as we had hoped we'd be, but we had tremendous support from both the federal and the provincial governments, and a good amount of support from other towns and also the municipality of Kings. So we are here to ask, recognizing the valuable service provided to the community, we are requesting a grant in lieu of taxes from the town of Kentville. Any reduction in our tax burden would ensure that more funds can go directly to service provision. I did some digging and I saw that the town of Kentville bylaw chapter 87 offers a partial tax exemption, and that in Appendix A there were some considerations of other community groups, whether 100% or reduction of annual taxes, and we are here to ask that that same consideration be given for this initiative. So, and just sort of to wrap up, again, this is a little bit repetitive, but I think it warrants saying, restating. You know, community support promotes our efforts in prevention and public awareness education. We really do not want this to be a private issue anymore. I think we all should own that we need to talk about it openly and kind of make it a hot topic. We really, for change to happen, we have to talk about this. Changing cultural and societal attitudes and beliefs in our own community, improving recognition and support for violence against women and anti-violence services and shelters, and really, by and large, community support empowers the survivors, the families, the moms and the kids that need these services. So we really, really are seeking response from community members that's done in a way that are survivor-centric. So let's focus on the women and their families. And should you be interested, there are resource links, and I know you have all access to this, but I'm sure, not that I want to pile this on Ginger, but there's all kinds of information out there. And I would certainly be happy to send additional references if you need them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Deb, for that presentation. And as you noted, we have put this on our agenda under new business for discussion at a later point. This is a CAC meeting. So typically what happens at a CAC meeting is discussion, recommendations, go back to staff, that type of thing. The one thing that I will mention is that this bylaw, when they talk about 100%, what it's talking about is if a nonprofit is paying commercial taxes. So we reduce it 100% down to residential tax.
Okay.
So under the MGA, the town of Kentville must always charge property tax, and our lowest property tax rate is the residential rate. But as you've asked in your presentation, is a grant in lieu of property taxes, and that's how we will be discussing it further. So if anyone has any questions with regards to what Deb has said here this evening, please, Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you,
Oh.
Deb.
Sorry, Councillor Zabian was ahead, but
Okay,
sorry.
Go ahead, I'm okay.
okay. Thank you for your presentation. I should know this, but I'm not 100% sure. What is the service area for Chrysalis House? It's not just Kentville, it's like how far do you reach?
So really, Annapolis, Kings, West Hants.
West Hants, okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Zabia.
Thank you. Thanks, Deb, for your presentation, and thanks all of you for what you do. I know when I was there for the opening, somebody told me, what's the capacity again for the new building? What's your intake number?
So so you're looking for number of beds specifically?
Yeah, compared to the old one, I guess, or,
So there's been no change.
okay.
There's been no change. Do you want, yes. I'm this much confident.
That's okay. Ginger wanted to come up anyway.
I was just letting her go. So it's interesting because we do have a greater capacity because it's a much larger building. However, our funding has not recognized that we have an increased ability to have capacity. So in order for us to actually fill the building, we would need to have more funds for staffing.
Okay.
So, which is also why we're trying to find creative ways to put more money towards the services and less towards, things that we don't need to.
Gotcha,
So
thank
we
you.
actually have 13 bedrooms and then the observation room in this building.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, there's no further questions. Deb, thank you again for your
Thank you,
presentation.
everyone. Appreciate your time.
All right, moving on to our department reports and recommendations. The directors have provided their reports for your review and are present if there are questions. And CAO Trope, could you please introduce our department reports and recommendations?
Okay, so tonight we'll be starting off, as we always do, with finance, so Director Cole.
I'm going to take my mask off because I find it very hard to talk with a cloth mask. Makes my mouth even drier. So good evening to you all, and thank you very much for having me up here. It's great to be here to present the report from the Finance Department for the month ended September 30, 2021. And I'm not going to go into my report in great detail because you've all read it. But I will highlight a few things. The benchmark we're looking at the end of September is 50% of everything was averaged evenly over the year. We're reporting taxes currently at 101% recorded, and it includes the final tax levy, and the due date for the final tax levy was October the 1st, 2021, rather than September 30 because of the recent holiday that we've had. Payments in lieu of tax, we received the federal grant in lieu, $31,508 under its budget. The provincial grant in lieu is still outstanding, and there's no word yet as to when that payment in lieu of tax will be received. Other than that, I'll just highlight that the financing transfers related to the revenue stream are recorded at 100%, and those are all the budgeted transfers from the operating budget this year. On the expenditure side of the ledger, we're slightly over the benchmark at 51.4% expended at this time. The only thing that of note would be that environmental development, it exceeds the yardstick due to a payment of an insurance deductible. And on the financing and transfer side, on the expenditure side of the ledger, all the transfers to the town's various reserve funds has been recorded as according to the operating budget. The summary of outstanding taxes looks a little bit skewed as compared to last year because our due date was October 1 rather than September 30. So you'll see a variance there, but we're looking at the current year's taxes outstanding at September 30 at $2.1 million. We're 78.4% collected, and last year we collected somewhere around 92%, but that was September 30's figures. Total property tax outstanding at September 30 is still $2.1 million. And last year it was $714,862. It equates at this point in time to 78.5% collected as compared to last year's figures dated September 30 at 92.6%. I did some checking around at October the 8th, 2021. Outstanding taxes sits at around $630,000, so we're basically on target as to where we were last year. The Town of Capital investment plan for 21-22 is also attached, and at September 30, at the date of writing, we have $508,606 have been expended through the capital fund for the capital acquisition plan. That's about 22.3%, and you'll see big changes in that in the next few months as all the invoices from our contractors are starting to come in. So that's my report from the Finance Department for the month ended September 30, 2021.
All right, thank you very much, Director Kroll. Are there any questions with regards to this report? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Deb, the piece in there, the province has not really released the financial information return for completion. When do we find out, obviously it's after that, but when do we find out what our financial?
Condition index is?
Yes, thanks.
I can give that information to you tomorrow,
Okay.
because I calculate it myself.
Oh, you do?
Once the financial
Okay.
statements are done, I don't wait for the province.
Okay.
I have a report already drafted
Okay.
that shows the last 6-7 years in graph form and whatnot. So I can make sure that I'll send that CO Troke and he can get that to you.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Are there any,
Oh, sorry.
I got it. Are there any further questions on this report? None? All right, moving on to your next report.
Yes, thank you very much. This is my first projection report for the year ended March 31st, 2022, and this is extrapolated from the information available at September 30, 2021. In this first report, we're essentially at a break-even position. We're reporting a small surplus position of around $16,800. I won't go into great detail. You can read the report. It's got a lot of stuff in there, a lot of juicy stuff. Revenue is, well, I guess if you think finance numbers are juicy, but I guess I do. Revenue has increased this month. $17,200, and it comes from basically two things. It comes from unbudgeted conditional transfers that the town has received from around $11,200. And then there's a variance in taxes we received. Our tax levy came in at $35,100 over the budget targets, but the grants will of course offset that by around $31,500 negative. So anyway, we're looking at a small increase in our revenue streams compared to budget. On the expenditure side of the ledger, it's essentially a break even. We're only $400 an increase in this first projection report. There's a mishmash of increases, decreases through the whole departmental budgets. You can read those for, excuse me, for yourself. I will highlight a couple of items under environmental development. We're looking at that being over budget, and it's purely related to the payment of an insurance deductible from a claim that took place many years ago. And then we have recreation segment is reporting under budget in various segments of the recreation budget. So essentially, those are the only two of any significance. But hopefully you have had a chance to read the projection report, and you'll be getting one every month.
All right, thank you.
That's my report.
Thank you very much, Director Kroll. Are there any questions with regards to the projection report? All right, thank you very much. Next up, Director Gentleman with Planning and Development.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Just highlight the highlights, I suppose, for the month of September. 9 permits were issued with a building valuation of $144,000, bringing building valuation to year total of $22.4 million worth of development. Ryan's Park is moving along. Staff are still working with Canada Post to determine the best locations for the community mailboxes, because they also have to look at the 3 apartment buildings. That's also part of the future development of the property as well. A public hearing was held on September 15th to gather input on council's amendments to the NPS and LUB for changes to the C2 zone to allow some form of residential development. Those amendments were passed at second reading and were sent to Municipal Affairs and Housing. And the adoption of those amendments took effect on Tuesday, October 5th, with the publication of notice of decision. Business Park, there's 1 remaining lot, we think, at this point. available, and I've had a few phone calls already this week with regards to interest in that remaining land. And we are undertaking a couple of site plan applications. One is for a townhouse development on Mee Road, another one is for the expansion of the Valley Signature Dentist on Belcher Street, and there's a third that I neglected to put in there for a new Nissan car dealership in the west end of town. So that's my report.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions for the Director with regards to this report? None at all. Thank you very much. CAO, are you doing Community Economic Development Coordinators?
I certainly can do that if folks would like me to. Let me catch up. So, Visitor Information Center closed October the 10th, successful year. Of course, as folks were aware, we did a little bit of touch-up on the VIC this year. There's going to be some capital requests kind of for the future of that center, but that would obviously be in the next budget. The Fine Fresh marketing campaign was well received, and essentially planning for the Holidays Festival and holiday programming downtown's begun. Early planning stages were, but they're looking to book November 19th for folks to hold in their calendar for events, and the theme this year is Whoville. A number of projects around beautification going on, and I will leave folks to look at that, but always want to point towards our pumpkin people, and I hope folks have had the opportunity to see the interaction folks are having, particularly with our dinosaurs. I can tell you that I haven't driven by much of our fields here where I have not seen kids and parents doing everything from selfies to sitting on them and taking pictures, so super well received, and I just want to say a big kudos to our great artist who does all the work in-house to get this going. So we've certainly, it's been a great year. The rest I'll let folks peruse at their leisure.
Thank you, CAO. Are there any questions with regards to this report? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. CAO, I just wanted you to pass on thanks to Jerry Little for all his work on the pumpkin people, but also, he's done a really unique little plain windmill in front of the town hall, and I don't think that he's received enough recognition for that little thing. It was just spinning away the other day when I walked by, and it was quite windy out. So, and I also want to thank whoever's responsible for refurbishing the gateway signs, because they look 100% better. So thank you very much.
Are there any further questions for the CAO on this report? None? All right, moving on then to Parks and Recreation. Director Bedingfield, please.
Good evening, Council. You have my report in front of you. There's just a few things I wanted to touch on really briefly. One, I wanted to make sure that everyone recognizes Nick Gerard, who works for the park side of our department, in his completion of getting his arena ticket. Essentially, that means that we have now 2 people who can sign off on our plant, keeping our citizens and staff safe. So that's really great. It is not an easy course to pass, and Nick did it and did it well. So congratulations to him. Under council-related things, just a few items to update you on the green infrastructure grant. So we have been given the go-ahead to move forward on. Are you going to talk about this? No. Okay. To move forward after our Aboriginal consultation, where we received no comments, then we're able to move forward on the replacement of the Meadowview Bridge. You were going to talk about it, and I just stole your thunder. Snooze you lose. The accessibility plan, just so everybody knows, we have our committee of council, but we've also created an internal committee so that folks within town hall are keeping track of all of the priorities that are town hall focused, and like little t focused. So we're slowly getting things together. The next task is for each department to take a look at the plan and figure out how we can move forward together. And then just a quick update on the regional recreation facility. That has been, the contract for the feasibility study has been awarded to Sierra Planning and Management. Initial meetings have just started, and you will be hearing more about it, along with opportunities for engagement and feedback in the coming days, weeks, and months. The one thing I did not put in my report, and I apologize, but I do want to mention the Healing Circle that was hosted on September 30th. And how wonderful that was. And for those of you who attended, you saw that there was less than 250, so we were still in limits, but around 225 people attended, and that was really great. And we received excellent feedback. And it was just a really great place for people to gather and listen and talk and be together and heal. So just an acknowledgement that happened, and I'm really proud of our town.
Thank you very much, Director. And are there any questions for the Director? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Director Bedingfield, the green infrastructure grant for the Meadowview Bridge. We initially were going after, or looking at insurance. Obviously, I can assume that insurance said no, they weren't going to take care of it.
Nope, they will. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
It's insured.
But we couldn't move forward. I see where the question's coming from. We couldn't move forward on the project, even though it was being covered by insurance, because it felt within the larger piece. So we had to still follow the kind of the order of things.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Councillor York.
I just want to pass along my congratulations and thanks to Ashley, who planned Harvest Festival with the assumption of a Phase 5 opening, and then on a Wednesday was told that it was no longer going to be Phase 5. So it was a spectacular event, all things aside, but having to plan it with one phase in mind and being told you're not going to that phase in the end. It was spectacularly done and really efficiently operated. So thank you.
I appreciate that, and I will pass that on. I have to wait till October to talk about it, but it was a big deal.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. So looking at our financial report, I was a little bit shocked to see that we had pool revenue of $800. Is that a first time for pool revenue?
You mean on the plus side?
Yes, it seems to be on the plus side.
Yes, I can't debate the numbers. Yeah, we had minimal costs this year, as showing that right now, I will say we'll see at the end of the year, these are projection reports, but we also hired a lot less staff because there weren't any to hire, and because we didn't need as many because of the restrictions that were put on.
That's right.
And then because of that, there's less costs all around.
Right. I was just surprised because it was a COVID year and we still came out ahead, so.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
was
that's
nice.
not really a thing with pools, so maybe don't get used to that, but yay.
Yay. And on that same kind of vein, the problem with the splash pad, will we see a fix for that by next summer, do you think?
I think what you're going to see is we're going to do what we can right now, and then we will be it will be a capital ask to council next year.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Bedingfield. All right, and our next report is with Deputy Chief from the Police Department.
It's me? See, my misunderstanding, I was told that Craig was going to give the report, but that's fine.
Other duties as required.
What's that?
Other duties
As required, yes, absolutely.
Get the shirt
So you should have before you a copy of our report. Basically, the report will show I'll start with our administration hours and training. Training was down the last couple months over the summer, obviously with COVID. We've only had one member away on training. Of course, we've had some changes in staffing as we just had the new swearing in for the chief. And we've just made additions to our auxiliary program. We've had unfortunately, some hard times. We get some good auxiliary members, and then they want to become real police officers. So they go away and leave us, which is what we want for most cases. But then we have to retrain some more. So we've recently gone through that process, and we have 3 that will be starting with us hopefully in the new year. We have a lot of training to catch up on with our own members because of COVID. So the auxiliaries are put on the back burner until early in 2022. They'll go through a process of about 2 weeks of training before they can be allowed to come out with the members. So our stats, which are always key for the town, they love seeing us on the block down around town. They continue. We had a great summer, I think, considering we typically run with 2 people on a shift. So the members are getting out and being in the public, and so far so good for block time. Our bylaw report, his numbers are starting to come up since with the parking restrictions, that now they're starting to issue parking tickets. Whereas before with COVID, we weren't doing that, basically to help people back into the town for shopping. So his numbers are good. He's also not busy just with parking. He's busy with a lot of other things, like he's doing stuff that our bylaw officers haven't done in the past. So he's doing actual investigations as well. So and I'm sure everyone knows Harlan, Special Constable Wood, very well, and he's very appreciated. Our budget now, I'm showing the one I was given to come over here with isn't up to date, but I know Deb will tell you that we're pretty much on par except for 1 or 2 places. Unfortunately, our vehicle maintenance is in bad shape, and that's due to, unfortunately, having a hard time getting vehicles, which we're all experiencing. But other than that, we're in really good shape. Yeah, we're at full staff, and things are looking good.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good job, Craig. Thank you.
You were just sitting there, and it was like, you were just calling out to us
I was.
to get out and
Yes.
to get up and chat with us. So this is really great. We don't typically put the deputy chief on the hot seat,
It's
but
okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Excellent, and you did a great job. So are there any questions for the deputy chief with
Forgot my
regards to the
mask and
report?
everything.
And look, you did such a great job. No one has any questions for you.
No questions.
No
Okay,
questions.
thank you.
So it's a good night. Thank you so much. All right, and our next report is Engineering and Public Works with Director Bell. And for any of you who just tuned in, this is Director Bell's 2-year anniversary at the town of Kentville.
Always on a CAC night, I guess. Forever, the day after Thanksgiving. Thank you, Worship, and good evening, everyone. Start out with Water Commission, and you'll see on your carols in front of you a peculiar empty liter bottle. It's not for any kind of personal tests or anything like that, or as Mayor puts it, biological breaks or anything of that nature. Water Commission is required by Department of Environment to do annual lead and now copper testing of 20 samples, sort of random samples. And last year we did 20 different residential. I guess it was a mix of residential and commercial locations throughout town. This year I thought might be a good time to ask you all to sample. Hopefully this week. We'd like to get them in as soon as we can. And it's a stagnated sample, so it needs to be sort of that first liter out of your tap, assuming your kitchen tap is the simplest. Leave the aerator on if you have one, they say, and take the first, fill up that bottle. It's a liter. Doesn't need to be refrigerated, but I would like to get them back this week, and I don't mind coming to get them. If you want to email me or anything, I can pick them up, or if you're in town hall, drop them off with Carla, or whatever is the most convenient. But I would like to get them into to the lab in the city, and our water guys will get the other 13, I guess it would be, to make 20. So it's just the first liter out of the tap in the morning. The test is intended to see certainly how corrosive our water is and how it reacts with different people's plumbing. Some people have copper, some have plastic piping. Sometimes it's the fixture itself that may, there may be lead or extra amount of copper coming out of that fixture. It's not really an indication of it being in our water. We test our water regularly. There's no levels, certainly nearly non-detectable levels in our water for those two parameters, lead and copper, but it is still mandated by the province, Nova Scotia Environment, to test annually. We had 95% compliance last time. We had 20 samples, and 19 were below the limit, and one was above in lead, and again, now they're testing for copper. So thank you very much. If I can have those back. Operationally, in the month of September, it was pretty uneventful for the Water Commission. There were several new residential and commercial connections, I think, as Director Gentleman said. We've had lots of permits, and as those homes are being completed, we're hooking people up and providing new meters to those homes and businesses. Similarly, with the sanitary sewer service, no real issues during the last month. In Public Works, we did order a new backhoe. It was a CAT backhoe at the end of, or in September, I guess. The current backhoe is set to be returned off lease at the end of October after having it for 5 years. And due to ongoing delays in the availability of equipment and all sorts of materials, the new one won't be here until the end of the calendar year. So we'll rent the existing one back from CAT as an off lease until their new one arrives. In the end of September, I was asked to attend as a traffic authority, asked to attend the monthly Kentville Police Commission meeting. Basically fielding questions from some of the members on potential for speed limit reduction, parking time limits in the downtown, and things of that nature, and to look into the use of the newer, sort of smaller solar strobe lights. You see them in Wolfville, and I think Berwick has a few as well. For some of our current crosswalks without lights that we have now, the traditional overhead push-button ones that are hardwired, these would be either wired or solar option, and I've asked for some pricing on that from one of our suppliers. Under projects, the Burke subdivision upgrades, the major project this year, the contractor is approximately 90% complete, and with the pipe work and things are progressing at a steady pace. You'll see curbs go in the next 2 weeks or less, and paving immediately after that. So they're still on pace to be substantially complete by the end of October. Some small, probably minor issues not issues, but landscaping and things maybe into the early part of November, but essentially the street should be paved by the end of the month. We have several other small projects, including stormwater upgrades throughout the town and repairs to the dike that was completed last month, or I guess that was in August, to the storm outlet along the south side of the river near Shanix. And I mentioned, I think, before my last month's report about the arena, we're getting a new sewer lateral for the arena that will go across Webster Street and into the end of River Street to get rid of the pumping station that seems to plague the arena every Sunday night when someone's in there playing shinny. And as Rachel mentioned, the railway bridge that burned, former railway bridge that's now a pedestrian bridge, is covered by insurance, and we're waiting for the Aboriginal consultation to be completed. That is now. We've ordered the new replacement for that. It's going to be a precast concrete bridge. Should be very durable and attractive, and should be installed early November. They're making that now at one of the precast plants, and that is my report.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Director Bell. Are there any questions for the director with regards to his report? No questions.
Thank you.
All right, CAO, your turn.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to go through a couple of things. As folks are aware, the provincial health order now is in phase 5, but bits and pieces of how things will work are continually coming through as questions are being posed at a provincial level. So as I like to say, stay tuned. We continue every day to work with our REMO group and to be sifting through the various pieces of information that are coming out. Of course, tonight you started getting your updates with regards to monthly positions as to where we are. Also had an opportunity for the province to reach out to tell us that they were re-kickstarting the process with regards to claims for Hurricane Dorian. So yes, these are quite old, but it is a process that we will work with the new consultant to make sure that the Kenful claim is processed. And the other piece obviously is a follow-up piece of business. We're still waiting from the province to have an expected call around their infrastructure project. So we certainly at that point will be ready to go when that comes out. Tonight you have in your package the first bundle of policy changes. So as we've been talking about, there's a series of policies that we're beginning to work our way through. Some of these are more updates, but in others there's an attempt to combine these documents together to just streamline them a bit. Intermunicipal service agreement work continues, regular meetings with the CAOs, and we've had an opportunity to have another series of presentations with mayors and wardens, so that work's continuing. The internal committee is around accessibility, as discussed earlier, is underway, and then of course the citizen appointments are part of your package this evening. One of the pieces I do want to really turn folks' attention to, though, is on the housing and homelessness file. There's some work underway here with the nonprofit community and with regards to the town, trying to address a number of issues that have come to light. We've held our first meeting, which included the province at the table, and we're going to be reconvening this week to talk about a potential option for an emergency coordinator, and we'll be bringing all the players back, and this will be going to the province for a request. One of the biggest pieces here is that we're beginning to, as we get into the colder weather, we're seeing more and more families that we're finding alternative types of housing that are now in precarious situations. So they may have been utilizing cottages and camps and trailers. As we head into the winter months, these are folks who are beginning to present. We want to make sure we have somebody who's coordinating with them to find, what's their next step in trying to move forward. So I'll leave it at that. Happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the CAO? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. The CAO, I'm just wondering, this has come up several times, I think since May. Kenful Historical Society has been looking for a garbage can, and for some reason we seem to not be able to provide them with a garbage can. Is there a shortage of garbage cans in town, or why can't we get them a garbage can?
So the short answer, thank you for that, is that the sorting style bin, which separates the garbage and the recycling, there's not many of those to go around. The other option, of course, was to put a large barrel in, but unfortunately then you ended up with everything being put into one can. So we were hoping to be able to get the separation can there, but we didn't have one. And I believe there were some conversations with folks, with staff around if we couldn't get that to go to the barrel, but I haven't had an update, so I'm assuming you're saying nothing has been put there as of yet.
No, I was over on the weekend after the show and shine, and I didn't see one there, so I was just wondering about that.
No, fair enough. So we didn't have a separating one, so the other option was to then go to the barrel. But I'll follow up on that, and I'll get back to you to let you know where we're at.
Great, and the other thing is, comes from an asset management concern, and at the same location. We own that building, and I understand that there's a leak in the roof right now, and some concerns about those windows. And as we head into the winter, I'm concerned for our asset if we don't fix those things. Having water come into a building and either through the roof or seeping in through windows is diminishes the value of our assets. So I'm just wondering if there's any chance of getting anything like that caulked or repaired before the winter starts.
So the windows have been caulked and painted.
Okay, great. Yeah.
The roof, part of the challenge there is that because of the condition of the shingles, as you go to repair one, you're cracking and splintering another one. So in essence, that roof needs to be replaced, and certainly that would be an item that'll come back to council as part of our capital budget conversation. My understanding is, and this was both from staff assessment, but also from talking to some of the folks who had given me the tour there, is that it's only at certain times they're getting some leaking in the roof, and it seems to be that really wind-driven rain. And so certainly you're right, needs to be addressed, and the short answer is the whole roof probably needs to be done, so we'll be coming back with that as a request for council.
Yeah, I'm just thinking maybe there's some kind of membrane that could go over top of the leaky part, like, rather than, just as a temporary fix, to just seal it up for the winter.
Certainly would take a look at that. It's in a valley there where the particular issue is.
Yeah.
The initial thought of patching it was one that came back as this is gonna cause more damage than it's gonna create by fixing, but we'll certainly take a look and see if there's something
Okay.
short-term.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Are there any further questions for the CAO? None? All right, then. I would entertain a motion to accept the staff reports as presented. Councillor York, thank you. And for the second, Councillor Zabian, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that staff reports be accepted as presented. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Directors, thank you very much for your time. Deputy Chief, thank you for your presentation this evening. And we'll see you all again.
Thank you.
All right, we have no unfinished business and no correspondence, so that will move us directly into new business. And our first item is an update on the Robinson property. And okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess for a biological break, and then when we return, I'll set the timing at that point, Councillor Zabian, for you leaving the chair. Thank you. Okay, mute, we're good.
Yep, thank you.
All right, the time is 8:10, and Counselor Zabian, you are stepping away from your chair. Thank you. And our next agenda item is update on the Robinson property, CAO Troke. If you could please take us through the update on the former Robinson property.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. So, just to go back, council in June had agreed to amend the purchase and sale agreement with respect to the former Robinson property on Main Street. This amendment extended the requirement for the developer to have 15% of the construction completed on September 30th of 2021. On October 5th, I reached out to the developer to look for, was there a request to extend the deadline and what the circumstances were with regards to the property. The developer today I had a conversation with Mr. Zabian with regards to, and he provided me documentation as to an agreement that he has with Roscoe Construction with regards to the construction on the site of a 3-story building. And the design and engineering would begin immediately with the trades, packages going out in February, and construction beginning in March of 2022. And with the intention that the construction timeline would be 12 to 13 months. I also received from Mr. Zabian a letter from a mortgage and finance broker who advised that mortgage financing was secured and in place with regards to the property. Just for council's clarification, so the original purchase and sale on this property was August 22nd of 2019. And the original 15% completion date was June 30th of 2020. And this was amended and changed to October 30th of 2020, and then amended to May 31st of 2021, and amended again to September 31st of 2021, with a completion date in 2022. So essentially what I've come to council tonight, and I have had an opportunity to speak with the developer. 2 questions I have for council. First, just seeking direction with regards to what council would like to direct the CAO with regards to the buyback provision. Is there an intention to act on that buyback provision or not? And if not, then looking for provision from council with regards to what kind of provisions to extend or considered extensions with regards to the 15% completion date and with regards to the construction completion date. So that's my 2 items to request from council.
All right, thank you very much, CAO Troke. So the CAO has provided us with, solicitor?
Your Worship, if I might, and this might be exactly where you were headed, so
Okay.
I apologize for jumping in if it was. But the easiest approach to this might be to invite a resolution of council to amend the dates for I'm not sure, I have to ask the CAO whether we have a new date for the 15% completion, if that's the percentage, but essentially it was footings in the ground, whether we have a new date for footings, because that's the first date that needed to be complied with in the agreement, and we know the completion date's being pushed off to the following year. So if there was someone who wanted to make a motion changing those 2 dates, or if we don't have a footing date anymore, disposing of that date altogether, because if you can get that motion on the floor, then we need not entertain the discussion about buyback. It's only if you can't get a motion on the floor to extend those dates that there need be any other discussion, and if there is further discussion, I may well be advising council to go between camp.
Sure.
You're going, you're.
Yep. I'm getting used to the mic. So at this point, from the construction company, I have a date when they expect to begin construction, and basically outline that it's a 12 to 13-month construction process. So at this point, the documentation doesn't have a specific date with regards to the previous items, so there would need to be some clarification if we were going to be adjusting those dates, or at least a best estimate of what it would take to do that.
Okay, so my recommendation would be that, that CAC can have some discussion around this, but if CAC is gonna recommend to council, that it entertain amendments to the current agreement, that those dates be clarified between now and the council meeting. But my recommendation remains the same, and that is CAC prepared to entertain a recommendation to council to amend the current dates to permit the time frame now being suggested, and it couldn't be as general as that, with the details to be worked out between now and council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Solicitor. I'm not going to say that you exactly read my mind or my notes on that, but what I was going to add to this information is that a lot of this is new information, and you've just been provided with this. So what we can do is direct the CAO to firm things up and, in effect, table any decision-making, and the CAO would come back to us on the October 25th council meeting with all the nuts and bolts that we need. Or, as the solicitor has said, we could have a motion that CAC direct the CAO to investigate potential extension considerations to report to October 25th council meeting on a request from Mike's Clothing to amend the purchase and sale agreement to extend the 15% construction completion and building completion dates. You know, we can add other things to that with contractual dates of new amendments not being met, that it would immediately initiate a buyback clause. But what we basically need right now is a motion on the table to either discuss this, or a motion to take it off of the table, to actually table it, giving the CAO more time to bring back more information for us. Deputy Mayor, I see your light is on.
Thank you, Worship. Motion to defer.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Okay, so if I could use the deputy mayor as the mover of that, and Councillor Maxwell for the second? Okay. So that the CAO is we're tabling this motion, are we not? We're not deferring it.
It's not really being tabled, Your Worship, because it's not coming back to CAC.
Okay, it's gonna come, so we're deferring it, or directing him?
I believe essentially you're giving the CAO instruction to gather more information and bring it to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to amend if you like.
Okay, so the motion would read that CAC direct the CAO to investigate potential extension considerations and report to the October 25th council meeting. Does that work for both? Okay. And CAO, does that give you enough information to provide us with the info that we will need?
Can do. I'll reach out to Mr. Zabian and we'll have a conversation around firm dates.
All right, so it has been moved and seconded, and Councillor Gerard, I do see your light on, but we'll get the motion on the table before we entertain discussion. It has been moved and seconded that CAC direct the CAO to investigate potential extension considerations and to report to the October 25th council meeting. Discussion. Councillor Gerard? There we go.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the optics of this look terrible. I think the fact that this is one of our own that's asking for this, and that continually gets this extension. To me, it doesn't look very good. I won't support it, especially when nothing's been done. A year ago, October 2020, we were told, or we said, you know, no more extensions after this. And then June 2021, no more extensions after this. Zero has been done since then. And I think this looks terrible, especially since the developer sits here among us. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that we're here tonight, and that's why I made the motion that I did. To really have a really good look. I mean, I was vigorously trying to write down CAO Troke, August 2019, June 3rd, like there were a lot of dates there that you were sort of throwing around. So that's why I made the motion that I did, to really have a really good look at these dates and the subject property, the extensions, you know, the tax revenue, if it had been completed as originally agreed upon, et cetera, et cetera. So it is just disappointing to be where we are tonight, but here we are. But as I always say, and most of us, all of us, I think, around this horseshoe say, you know, good information, good decision. So I just really feel like I really need more information to make the right decision. So, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I understand why we put dates around, you know, companies building, you know, on certain times, having a certain percentage done by this date and a certain percentage done by that date. But ultimately, I feel that as far as the public is concerned, and, you know, that this is a company that the people in town have faith in, and that this company will do what they say that they're going to do. And when that building actually goes up, I really don't think that anybody is concerned about that except for us. And I'm going to put that out there. I think that we're being a little bit narrow focused if we don't recognize the fact that we've been in a worldwide pandemic for 2 years. And every building, part of a building industry has been affected. Go and try to find any lumber for your back deck, or shingles for your roof, or different things like that, and there are holdups. I don't know how fast banks are working right now, or mortgage brokers are working right now, and we know from this summer that labor, there's a shortage of labor right now for different industries, and I believe the construction industry is one of those things. You know, for me, I really, honestly, I don't believe in setting dates like this, and I just think I have faith, like the majority of people in this town have faith, that this company will do what they say they're going to do, and when that building goes up, I'll be happy to see it go up, but I really don't care when it goes up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor York.
I have heard from people in the community who have expressed some concern. Most notably, I think, with the extensions being provided by council, they've expressed their frustration with me and our role as councillors. We have had another banner year of $22.4 million, I think is where we are with building at this stage in 2021. And that's a banner year after last year's benchmark banner year. So I don't think Kentville at the moment is in a crisis of building. I do want to highlight that the building was purchased, or the lot rather was purchased in 2019, and the original 15% completion was June of 2020. That would have been before any COVID restrictions. So if we're taking into consideration restrictions of building supplies and shortages and global pandemics, the original dates would have kept in line with that. Again, I'm just repeating some of the concerns that have been expressed to me by constituents in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? All right, well, CAO, I really, I guess I'm going to say to you, I feel like this council is between a rock and a hard place. And, you know, I'm disappointed, you know, when I think of our decision-making and the process that we had for decision-making, and, you know, I guess the three things that we pinned our hat on with properties, you know, making sales of properties in Kentville, it's always, you know, do we believe that the developer is going to do what they say they're going to do? Do we want to work with that developer, and is it a fit for where it's going? And you know, this I will say, although we haven't seen a design, would be going on design number 3, and you know, I'm very torn, but as Councillor Maxwell has pointed out, you know, once the building is on that lot, I'm not going to be sad, and you know, maybe the rock and the hard place will get a lot softer, but right now I'm at that spot. I'm between a rock and a hard place, and I guess sending this back to you to get more information, and I will request that we be provided with the dates so that we can actually see them in front of us instead of, you know, hand scratching them down on a notepad, so that when we come back here, that we can truly make a good decision, a decision that is good for the downtown Kentville, that's good for the town of Kentville, and that we can live with ourselves with. I guess is the way that I would posture that. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. And if there's no further discussion, I will call for the question. So the question is on recommendation of approval from CAC to direct the CAO to investigate the potential extension considerations and to report to the October 25th council meeting. And the thing is up here now.
So please keep your clickers on the desk and press down into your desk. You don't want to break the clickers.
And voting is now open.
See, like a dream, like a dream. Except Craig. Craig, yours is not on the desk. I can see it.
Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. And Councillor Zabian, you may return to your chair, and the time is 8:28. Thank you. All right, our next piece of business is with regards to the Accessibility Committee community appointments. And CAO Trope, could you please take us through the recommendation for our community member appointments to the Accessibility Committee?
Thank you very much, Mayor Snow, and as folks were aware, we had, just getting my notes here in front of me, sorry. In the May 31st meeting of council, instructions were given that the adoption of the Kentville Accessibility and Action Committee. And essentially, we went out multiple times through multiple media to make sure that we captured as many folks as possible who would be interested in participating. We also wanted to make sure that we had a pool of individuals who potentially would come forward in the event that we had some ad hoc or very specific committees. So some of these may be specific to certain things as we move forward. And so as we received these, I had staff take a look at the applications. And before you tonight is a list of individuals who we are recommending to council to approve as the appointment for the members of this committee. And so the names that we're bringing forward tonight are Bernie Zink, Laurel Taylor, Spencer Lang, Yuning Pan, and Gerald McPherson. We did have a few other individuals who also came forward, but also it was felt that these individuals were very diverse, had all kinds of different backgrounds. We're connected to the disabilities community in many different ways. And the intent was with the other applicants that they would also be called when we had specific projects to bring them in, depending upon timing and when that was needed. So the recommendation that you have before you tonight is that the recommendation of council approve that staff appoint Bernie Zink, Laurel Taylor, Spencer Lang, Yuning Pang, and Gerald McPherson to the Kentville Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Thank you very much, CAO. And our motion would be that CAC recommends to council the appointment of the following members: Bernie Zink, Laurel Taylor, Spencer Lang, Yuning Pan, and Gerald McPherson to the Kentville Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee. If someone could move that. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommends to council the appointment of the following members: Bernie Zink, Laurel Taylor, Spencer Lang, Yuning Pang, and Gerald McPherson to the Kentville Inclusion and Accessory Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion on this matter? No discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to recommend to council the appointment of the following members: Bernie Zink, Laurel Taylor, Spencer Lang, Yuning Pan, and Gerald McPherson to the Kentville Inclusion and Accessory Committee. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you very much. And CAO staff will advise those individuals of their position on the committee.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our next piece of business. We were provided with 7 policies for review, and then the CAO pulled back 3 of these policies. It's requested that you review these policies and provide any changes to Jennifer by close of business on October 20th, and the next revisions will be provided to council at the next meeting of council on October 25th, at which time we may approve policies or return them for further work. Are there any comments or considerations prior to moving on? CAO, on the matter of policy G39, staff long service awards, should this policy not be part of the staff policy manual rather than a policy of council, since it only speaks to staff? And further, could it not be amended to be called service awards? And that we not only recognize the long service of our staff, but that also perhaps that we recognize the excellence of service and perhaps even a peer recognition for outstanding service.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. And yes, in fact, I have worked in an organization where that's the case. Typically what you would do in those is have awards that would be brought forward even by staff for other staff. So service excellence and so on. That typically once a year, you would have an opportunity for the folks across the organization to be recognized. Those then would roll up under, depending upon the type of organization, the CAO to make sure that they are presented at the same time as long service awards. Or if there were no long service awards, those special awards could be given as well. So certainly happy to do that and have seen that in other organizations.
Okay, so then can we cut our homework down from another policy and send that one back to you? Solicitor.
I just wanted to piggyback on your worship, and that is Dan and I have been having some conversations around these policies. Historically, council has dipped its toes in the staff pool of policies, and anywhere that your policies deal with staff, in my opinion, should be left to the CAO. The CAO deals with everything that involves your staff. CAO is familiar with your collective agreements, the agreements with administrative staff who don't fall under collective agreements. And this is a good opportunity to sever anything that deals with staff from things that deal with council. You folks set policies with respect to yourselves where it's appropriate, and the CAO deals with policies with respect to staff. And some of the confusion often arises as a result of the Municipal Government Act, which speaks of decisions by council, by bylaw, policy, or resolution. These are not policies that are big P policies under the Municipal Government Act. These are human resource policies that fall solely to the discretion of the CAO. And quite frankly, I think in the town in Kentville, it's a large job to get those in order because some of them are quite old.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for that recommendation, Solicitor. Then what I'll throw back to you is our G4 travel expense policy was amended when I was on the Joint Municipal Accountability and Transparency Committee. And at the time, they were looking to have all council staff and CAO travel policies and expenses all kind of in the same bailiwick. Should we sever those two and have a council CAO policy and a staff travel expense policy, or should we leave it as one policy?
My recommendation to the CAO is already that you should break them into two policies. Policy that applies to the council, I think the CAO probably falls under the staff policy. But that could be open for discussion. But the policy that applies to council and policy that applies to staff, they may well be the same policy, but the CAO sets the policy for staff.
Okay.
And it confuses or can confuse responsibilities when they're together.
Okay, thank you. So CAO, can we take that one off of our list of homework?
Happy to do so.
Okay, so since we're going there, the hospitality, G68 hospitality policy was another one that came out of the JMAT, and that is a municipalization of the provincial policy. So can I send that to you as well?
We can do that.
All right. So for homework, we have G14 proclamations. How's that for pretty slick? All right. Proclamations, I would suggest that you look at how some other towns deal with proclamations. And typically, the way that we've done them with this council is that we've taken on any of the provincial proclamations that have been put out. But we don't do proclamations for every single one that comes across the desk. All right. So you've got homework. G14, proclamations. And the dog ate the rest of it. Councillor Maxwell, just give me a sec. Okay, go.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering, B, C, and F, were we gonna not look at those ones, or?
The CAO was at AMANS last week.
Right.
And there was a lot of discussion going on, so they will come back to us.
So they're coming back?
Yeah.
And so the proclamations policy, is that the same as the flag policy?
No,
Or,
no.
so that's a different,
Yeah.
that's a different thing?
Proclamations are the ones that
When
we.
you read a
Yeah.
statement? Okay.
Yeah, exactly,
All right.
exactly.
And so any changes or anything we should send to CAO, is that correct?
No, send them to Jennifer.
To Jennifer?
Yeah, and that way she'll have it for our next council meeting, and if we're happy with it, then we can approve it at that time.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Okay, moving right along here, speaking of policy. So COVID-19 policy for workplace safety, CAO Troc, you have provided council with the opportunity to review the staff policy for COVID-19, and it is acknowledged that council does not need to approve this policy. However, we may wish to discuss and adopt our own policy if you would provide us with some further details.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. So, and your introduction covers part of the conversation here tonight. So, I had an opportunity over the last number of weeks to talk to a number of municipal units around what they were doing with regards to their staff COVID-19 policy. And typically this extends also then to volunteers, because you have folks who are entering into and sharing facilities and whatnot and interacting with staff. So what you see before you is a policy that essentially is one that is a hybrid. Recently, of course, you heard the province has just taken the adoption of 100% full vaccination. Others have taking more of a testing approach. So what I've done here, and is similar to what you've seen a number of municipalities in the valley do, which is it is a testing approach that is fairly rigorous, and if you'd like to not be part of that testing approach, then get doubly vaccinated. And so this is draft. I've sent it to the union, who has provided some feedback and has been supportive of where we're going with this. Later this week, I'm going to have an opportunity to speak one-on-one again with the union. This has been discussed through our directors with our teams. And so the intention would be that based on those final conversations, that the draft, if there's any tweaking, this would then go to a final policy that we would pick a date in which we would enact it. And the two items that you obviously want to take into consideration is one, making sure that staff who are wishing to get vaccinated have the opportunity to do so, and two, securing the rapid tests so that you have sufficient number should anybody want to take them. The other part I will say is, again, the shifting sands on this is that at any point in time, we could have edicts that could come down from the province on this, and then because we get our power from legislation from the province, by default, that's what we would take. So I feel that this goes a long way for keeping staff and volunteers safe. It gives us some structure in order to be able to do our business. And I wanted to make sure that council had an opportunity to see it. And then obviously, if there was any direction from council to do anything we could do to support your work, I'd be happy to take that and bring anything back council would like to see.
All right, thank you very much, CAO. So back in March of 2020, council actually made a motion to enact what they called council decision-making COVID-19 protocols. And basically, we suspended CAC meetings at the time. We were using Zoom as per the ministerial order. And this is still sitting there in place. And basically, what we did is suspended our G70 meeting policy. So I would request that we have a motion that CAC recommends to council to rescind the March 2020 COVID-19 decision-making protocols based on the ministerial order of the day, and that we adopt current meeting policy practices for meetings, and further that we practice continued safe distancing, masking and in the gallery, and 1/3 use of the gallery for public access to the chamber until something else changes. So if, thank you. And the seconder? Councillor Huntley, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that CAC recommends to council to rescind the March 2020 COVID-19 decision-making protocol based on the ministerial order and adopt current meeting policy practices for meetings, and further that we practice continued safe distancing, masking, and 1/3 use of the gallery for public access to the chamber. Discussion on this matter? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I would like to go a step further, and I would like to follow the staff. And I think that we should have a vaccination policy or a testing policy for ourselves. I think that if we're working in a building where our staff is being required to be fully vaccinated or tested, that it makes no sense for us to be walking in and out of that building if there happened to be any of us who were not vaccinated. And I think that we should be subject to the same standard. We work in the same building. We come in and talk to directors. We hold meetings here, and I think that we should be part of that. And I'd like to have an amendment made that we do that. And if there was somebody that did not want to be vaccinated, that they would follow the testing policy. And the day of a meeting, a rapid test, or if they want to come in and talk to a director, a rapid test that day before they come in. So I think if our staff is being directed to do that, then we as public officials should be following along with them.
Councillor Maxwell, if I can recommend that we continue with the motion to rescind, but following that, another motion to direct the CAO to draft a like policy to come back to us based on the staff policy? Does that make sense to you?
We would be included in the staff policy?
No, we would have our own separate policy. So basically, this would be taken and drafted for us, kind of taking out the volunteers. You know, it would just speak to council.
Okay.
So he would draft that. So we'll get rid of the old way of doing business, clean that up, and then at our council meeting, we would have a draft policy, as you state.
Yes.
That matches this. Would that suit?
That would be fine with me, yes.
Okay, let's move on here. Councillor York, you had.
I just want to piggyback on what Councillor Maxwell was saying. Depending on our committees as well as of council, those buildings would have, or those organizations would have requirements that we might need to meet. Specifically thinking of KCA PTA, you're not allowed into the school without proof of vaccination. So in whatever policy that is drafted, we might need to look at our committees of council as well and look at the various requirements put forth by those individual organizations and see how they jive with what we're proposing for ourselves.
Okay, thank you. CAO, I see you're scribbling madly. You've got that note to add to a draft. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Do we know what other councils are doing? I thought where you were at IMANS last week that maybe there was some dialogue around that, to Councillor Maxwell's point.
So yes, and it's mixed. And so the reason that, so first, a number of councils are still deliberating and haven't opened up their chambers yet. Another number of councils have opened their chambers but have very few people through, similar to our situation. And what's happened is a few have gone the road of the discussion tonight, which is a staff recommendation came forward and council either adopted or went to their own. And I think some of it, I'll be honest, and there seemed to be kind of a lot of folks sitting back waiting to see what was going to happen with like the federal government and the provincial government. But I think what you've still got is a hybrid amongst most, and what you'd see, what we have here is not that far from what Wolfville has done and so on. And then the staff policy and the council policy ended up basically mirroring each other.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, are there any further discussions on this motion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to recommend to council to rescind the March 2020 COVID-19 decision-making protocol based on the ministerial order and adopt current meeting policy practices for meetings. And further, that we practice continued safe distancing, masking, and 1/3 use of the gallery for public access to the chamber.
Your Worship?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry.
Okay.
I thought we were doing the rescind and then we were gonna do this.
Yeah, we are doing the rescind first.
This is, okay.
Yeah, we're still on the rescind.
Okay.
Voting is now open.
Doing it wrong, Craig.
Voting is now closed. And that motion is carried. All right, and to Councillor Maxwell's point, is to direct the CAO to draft a COVID-19, we'll call it council safety policy?
That mirrors similar to what they see.
Exactly. And Councillor Maxwell, you for the motion on that? Yes. And could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Zabian? So it has been moved and seconded that CAC direct the CAO to draft a COVID-19 council safety policy. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Gerard.
So with regards to this and I guess sort of the previous one, whether we mandate it or whether the province mandates it, and I guess this question is probably for Jeff. When it comes time, if it comes time that the town is asking staff to get medical procedures done in order to keep their job, if it comes to that, and there are adverse effects, who's responsible? What happens then?
Solicitor, did you?
I don't understand the question. Sorry, Councillor Gerard.
So the province downloads to the town, everybody has to be vaccinated. So basically, we have to tell staff that in order to keep their job at the town, they have to have a medical procedure done, and they have adverse effects.
Yeah, so the policy is be tested. And if you don't.
No, I understand that.
Get vaccinated.
No, I understand that, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But my question is perhaps futuristic. What if the province starts saying everybody that works for a municipality has to be vaccinated? Which means our CAO has to call all the staff members and say, you guys all have to have the ones that haven't had it done so far have to have a medical procedure done, and there are adverse effects.
You're not gonna get me to comment on something the province may and likely will never do.
Okay, that's,
They'll deal with their employees and they'll let you deal with your employees.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion on the table. Are you ready for the question? The question is to direct the CAO to draft a council COVID-19 policy. No, that's okay.
So fast. Jen, you're so fast.
Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. CAO, I note in the staff policy that you don't mention new hires. And I just bring that up because I've seen it in several things ongoingly.
Yes, and specifically, as you know, the whole intent behind this is to try, obviously, and encourage vaccination.
Okay.
But at the same time, for those, rather than getting into specifics as to the rationale as to why, there's a plan B for folks who would want to go down that road. I believe, the data is showing that there's some pockets depending on age groups, depends on what percentage of vaccination. So you might be right that depending upon the age, may determine how many you would see. That said, there's very healthy conversation going on, I know, at a staff level amongst this. I know that folks have been very willing to share their thoughts around it. And so I feel this creates an environment where individuals have some choice and can, as grown-ups, have their own discretion as to where they want to go.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much for that. So our next piece of business is with regards to the KBC Special Project Funding Request. And Deputy Mayor, I understand you're going to speak to this matter.
Thank you, Worship. So I'm pleased to bring to you tonight the request from KBC as it pertains to their special projects funding. I'm sure council recalls in our last council meeting that we had with respect to the special project funding, that being in the amount of $25,000. It does note in the agreement that the CAO does have discretion with respect to the special projects funding, but that if the amount was in excess of between 500 to 700 and over, that their request would be brought to council for consideration. So there are two amounts that they would like to spend. The first one would be an amount of $5,000 for the We Are Kenful branded reusable cotton twill bags to be given out to retail businesses during the holiday shopping season as an incentive to shop locally. I believe we were all given those bags before, and this would just be a reorder. And the next one, which is very exciting, is the $5,000 for 2 stalls. And you will all see a picture of those in your package. The European Christmas market style to be used in Center Square for vendors. They can also be used at public events such as the Multicultural Festival and the Apple Blossom Festival. The stalls will have a metal roof, a solid floor, and a flip-out opening in the front. And then there was a photo that was included there. I have asked them with respect to the storage of the such stalls, and they do have somebody that will be storing them for them. And so that is for your consideration. So I believe I should make a motion to that effect.
And it will
Or-
be.
yes, go ahead.
I can take
sorry, I
your recommendation and turn it into a motion that
Thank you.
CAC direct the CAO to provide funding support to KBC for this request of $10,000 for events. So are you moving that?
Yes, thank you, so moved.
And Councillor Maxwell, I saw your hand. Thank you for the second. It has been moved and seconded that CAC direct the CAO to provide funding support to KBC for this request of $10,000 for events. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Zabian.
Worship.
Oh, yes?
Sorry, just before discussion occurs, I need to be reminded by the CAO whether or not this is supposed to be council or whether CAC is sufficient. If it's supposed to be council, then this should merely be a recommendation to council.
Thank you. Thank you, and I believe the way, when the budget was passed and subsequent conversations were that any request would come to the CAO, be vetted, and then would come back to council. So basically, the budget is already passed, so if at CAC there were approval, then certainly it follows the step that I committed to council that I would take.
Okay. Not sure that answered my question.
No, this.
But that, I guess, is for this group to decide. If it satisfied that CAC address these requests as opposed to council, and just recognize the difference. I don't believe this was the issue that wasn't written in the agreement, as I recall.
Correct.
It needed to be left to the CAO to decide when he was going to bring it to you, so you may be happy going with just the CAC.
So are we good with the motion?
Absolutely.
All right. Councillor Zabian, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just wondering, do you know, because I always like to know what we get out of spending, how many bags that the $5,000 buys them?
I want to say 250, between 200, it's either 250 or 500. It's either 250 or 500.
Would be more than that, wouldn't it? I would hope, wouldn't it? For, how much, yeah.
Clearly?
Those would be some expensive bags. Those would be some pricey bags.
I honestly, I don't know,
Yeah.
Councillor Zabian.
Okay.
I don't know.
So for clarification, are we ratifying this now or we're sending it back?
No,
I
we're
think
rat-
that was solicitor's question.
Yeah,
and
no, we're ratifying it now. The
Okay.
CAO has authority, and the funding is already in the budget. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, I like the market stalls, I think they're great. And I'm wondering if you could go back and talk to KBC. It says could be used at public events. And I'm wondering if maybe we could open that up to community groups. I'm thinking about using them at Oakdean Park or Burger Hill during the winter when there's a ton of people sledding and so on, and maybe some hot chocolate and some coffee and things like that at the hill, and maybe there's school groups and so on that would like to, do something like that as a fundraiser. that maybe we could get some use out of them in the winter that way. So if you could take that back to KBC perhaps, and maybe that's a possibility.
Yep, be happy to.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, is there any further discussion on this request? Ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to direct the CAO to provide support to KBC funding, oh my God, too much cut and paste here. To direct the CAO to provide funding support to KBC for this request of $10,000 for events. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, our next piece of business is with regards to the Chrysalis House request. So the request is the new property has an assessed value of $1.9 million and a calculated property tax for the 2021-2022 fiscal year is $11,498. The policy reference that they made does not affect this request, as I spoke to it earlier, because the property is assessed at the residential rate. And under the MGA, although we can reduce commercial tax for nonprofits, we only reduce it down to the residential rate. So I guess what I will present to you is that we do have precedents for the request of this type, and that was established when the soccer dome was built here, and the council of the day committed to a grant in lieu of taxes while the society was paying off their mortgage. And I would add that it should be suggested that council not make financial commitments beyond their election cycle, or in this case, the budget of fiscal 24-25. As some of you will recall, we carried that commitment 2 years into the last cycle of council. So that's, I guess, a little bit of background. So I would put a motion on the floor to get the conversation started, is that CAC direct the CAO to provide a report to council on the financial impact of this request at the October 25th council meeting. If somebody could move or be willing to move that. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC direct the CAO to provide a report to council on the financial impact of this request at the October 25th council meeting. Discussion? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Would that information that the CAO is going to collect, would that entail the same information, financial information, that we ask for in our grant policy?
That would likely be the type of approach I would take to provide the information. The other part, obviously, and the mayor referenced if there's any historical precedent that's been set where this may have been done in another way.
Thank you.
CAO, I'd also like to put on the table that Councillor Maxwell had asked a question with regards to the catchment area of the Chrysalis House. And we realized that the catchment area is actually Annapolis, Kings, and West Hants. So I think that it would behoove us to go out to those entities, those municipal entities, and say that if we're going to make an $11,498 grant to Chrysalis House, we are not financially gaining from it, so perhaps they could share in the burden of that almost $12,000. And among, all those units, that it comes down to kind of a nicely sum. But I just put that on the table as part of the investigation and know that that's a wonderful conversation that you could have. All right, anything further from anyone? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Your Worship. The only thing with that is that, the tax revenue, it wouldn't impact their budgets at all, right?
No, it does not.
That's the only thing.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But if we're not getting the revenue.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, we have to, they would have to write us a check and then we give them back
Mhm, exactly.
the same amount. So,
Mm.
yeah, but it's, perhaps they would be willing to share in this somehow.
Because of
and-
the catchment that, yeah,
Exactly,
absolutely.
exactly.
Okay, great, thank you.
Counselor Maxwell.
Thank you. That's why I asked the question. I thought maybe the other municipalities could somehow help them out as well. Even if we didn't give them the 11,000, maybe they could pitch in a percentage that would equal the 11,000 directly to Chrysalis House, That's,
Exactly.
and then we would get our percentage back, or that way. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. And I think what we want to show is that we have no financial gain on this.
Yeah.
Counselor York.
I'm wondering if we can make it clear before we make a vote, if they will be securing all of that money. So before I vote whether I'm going to give 4,000 or okay 4,000, I want to make sure the other municipalities are on board to fill in the gap. Just making sure we have all of the information at the table before we decide one way or the other, please.
I'm not sure you will get that answer in 2 weeks.
Fair enough.
So, what I might recommend is that maybe this report should come back to the next CAC for further discussion, just so we corral all the players who might want to say yes or no to this.
Deputy Mayor, are you happy with that amendment? To come back to CAC as opposed, because I put October 25th. Counselor Huntley, are you happy with that? So we'll say to November CAC?
We may not know by then.
Cautiously optimistic.
You're asking for money.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Is there any, Counselor Maxwell?
Well, I'm thinking about maybe it could be done kind of in the reverse, that we say we're, willing to do this. And then if Chrysalis House feels that that amount is not enough, they could approach the other municipalities and ask for a grant to make up the amount that they feel that, if we say, we want you to pay, half of that or 3/4 of that, then they could go back to the other sections and say, can you help us pay? Rather than us approaching them, that maybe Chrysalis House could approach them. That's just another way to look at it.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. When we supported the soccer dome for the first 2 years of being on council, was that amount 5,000 per annum?
No.
Or 20,000?
No, that was the original 20,000.
That was the original 20?
Yes, yes. The 5,000 was when they put the new turf in.
That's right.
We made a commitment, a 5-year commitment to pay
5K
25,000.
per year.
Yes,
Right.
yes, to that.
Okay, thank you. It just gives a bit of perspective on
Right.
that amount. that
Right.
we-
And we also have, I'm gonna call it a quid pro quo agreement with them on their current property taxes. They give us the service of the walking track over the winter in lieu of taxes.
Right,
So
okay,
this is ongoing.
right.
Is there anything further? CAO, you've got all those notes?
Good to go.
All right, all right. Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to direct the CAO to provide a report to council on the financial impact of this request at the November CAC. Flying fingers of fury. Ooh, voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. All right, we have no members in our gallery. However, if we did, we'd ask them to step up to the mic, remove their mask, and state their name and their address. Oh, I'm sorry, we do. Okay, we have one more event, or one more item of business at 8G, discussion on a public event. Councillor Zabian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think it would behoove us to have an event, and maybe this isn't the setting for it, the space size, but maybe we could use the fire hall, or, I know it's been done before, and just have a public forum where citizens can come up and speak to us directly and have a couple of minutes to voice their concerns or any questions they have to us. Thank you.
Do you have a format in mind?
No, I think just all of us could attend, you know, if it was agreeable, and you could have citizens show up and I guess let them freely speak. And I know it was done here a number of years ago. I remember, I think 5 or 6 years ago, right in the chamber.
Okay. So you're requesting a public forum for citizens to voice their concerns?
Or questions or concerns?
Okay. CAO, is this something that we could have staff have a look at?
I think to Councillor Zabian's comment, if it's done previously, we could take a look at how that was structured and come back with what that looked like, and then council can look at that. So happy to dig through and see what we have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor York.
I'm just wanting to say that in my role on Police Commission, I'm planning something very similar in terms of the public engagement with the Police Commission and the Kentville Police Service. So if there are, but as it's going to staff, then perhaps I don't need to offer it. But I do have some planning documents that I've been using in terms of best practices. Granted, it is a Police Commission board, so it's a little bit different, but the process would likely be very similar. So I can offer best practices if staff, if this doesn't go to staff, whatever.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm just wondering a few things, like what kind of meeting would it fall under in terms of what kind of meeting of council would it fall under? And when it was done previously, I'm trying to remember which one that was. The only one that I can think that we had the open session on was
we did
Webster Street.
Webster Street.
But that was a specific.
Yeah.
It was
and
a specific.
we did Canadian Mental Health at the Allens Motel, and we
Right.
had an evening here after. It would have been in October of 2017 where we invited the public in, and basically we just we said kind of look at what's been done in our first year, and then invited people to chat with regards to that, and they had the opportunity to step to the mic. So those are, I'm going to say those are the types of events that we've held. Now, the Canada Mental Health one was an open forum, not moderated.
Right.
The one that we did on AT, we set up different stations where people could answer different questions, and then we had a limited open mic session on that one.
Yeah, so they were specific meetings, so I'm just wondering, well, they were specific meetings, so I'm just wondering, like, a public forum to voice concerns, so if we have, like, at the end of this meeting, at the end of public comments, public questions, wouldn't they do that at a council meeting, or? I'm just trying to get my head around in what manner in which we would do this, what the meeting would look like, but maybe if you take that back to staff, I just don't know, and maybe Solicitor Matar can comment on it, I don't know.
I've got Councillor Zabian back on here.
Oh,
so,
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine as it comes through. So Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, thank you. Like, I'm thinking it's maybe not just to voice concerns or ask questions, that, you know, maybe we expand it out to say, you know, this is, you know, going into whatever, second year, whatever, and what would you like to see? What direction would you like to see us take? You know, not just the negative side of things, but also the positive side as well. And, you know, we're not perfect, but it might be nice to hear, you know, some comments from the citizens, and, you know, if they think that there's other areas, other things we should be paying attention to, that, you know, we should listen, I think.
All right, thank you. CAO, you've got, I see you writing madly, so I'm going with you're catching all of this.
I think we're good.
Okay, good. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. I was at the specific ones that the mayor had referenced. The one I'm referring to, though, I think was in 2015 or 14. It was before this council, and it was in this chamber. I just think it helps transparency, because to come to these meetings and have to sit here and wait till the end to, you know, it's very tiring for people. And again, we went through 2 years or a year and a half of people having to write letters, and that didn't go well either. So, I mean, it's just a nice way, and as Councillor Maxwell said, people aren't always going to gripe. You know, there's good things that'll come from it, and that's where we learn things that we may not know from public that they may want us to improve upon. And I think it's something that we should do. Every council should probably do it annually, just to hear from your people in a meeting that's set up for that format only, and that would be the only business that was done that evening. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. I think all the discussion around this would be an ideal one for a request for decision. Since Councillor Zabian, you know, this is his idea to bring forth, to send to staff exactly what he foresees, you know, for all intents and purposes, a town hall meeting with council is going to look like.
CAO, can you facilitate the drafting of that with Councillor Zabian?
Yeah, happy to.
All right, do we need a motion for that direction, or are you happy to take the direction that you've been provided with and liaise with the councillor?
If I could, I see there's 3 pieces to this. So as to the last comment, a request for decision. 2, I think an opportunity to look at what we've done historically. But the third part, and if I could throw out to council, is certainly to talk to my colleagues around the province who may be doing this regularly as well. And I think to Councillor Zabian's comment, if some do this on an annual basis or whatnot, we may be able to just even look at structures on how they would do an open house or something, and then that information could all come to council together.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, or Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. That just sort of the whole comments around public meeting and what the residents want to see and things like that just sort of prompts me to think about our strategic planning session. And perhaps this isn't the venue to bring it up, but I think it's something that we should engage in probably sooner than later.
Exactly. This could lead us into that strategic planning session with input from the public before we move into it.
Yeah.
So if we can marry those up, CAO, that might just work like a charm. Does anyone have anything further on that matter? All right. Public comments? We have no in-camera this evening, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, Councillor York. And the time is 9:19. Thank you all, good work.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.